Joining us today is Logan Ziegler. He's the founder and director of design at Skyterra. Logan has become a leading voice in luxury architecture, known for his ability to integrate sustainable organic elements into our world-class projects. We are talking about the future of home building, the rise of biophilic design, and how Skyterra is setting a new standard for luxury in Las Vegas. Hola, I am your host, Stephanie McGowan, and this is The Foundry. Thank you so much, Logan, for being here. I'm so excited. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to chat with you. Thank
Absolutely. I wanted to learn about your story and how you step into the biophilic design and architecture. What brought you into this market?
My story starts as a kid. I've always wanted to be an architect, so that path has just been linear for me to this point. But to talk about biophilic design, it was something I learned about in college. I had a professor, Jeff Roberts, and he was very immersed in this world. He was actually working on a project for Google at the time with the firm he worked for. And he taught me this concept, which now has really come into the mainstream. It's becoming more familiar, but then never heard of it, right? And what biophilic is, for those who are listening, right, is the innate love of nature that we have as humans, as biological beings. But people have started to encode how that works in buildings and architecture. What are the moves and how do we respond, incorporating nature? And I learned about these principles and the research, and it was just like mind-blowing, right? All of a sudden, things that you know intuitively feel good, you know how to reason why. You could connect that into principles and tools and design. So that's how I found out about it. And then from there, it really just changed my whole outlook and approach for architecture.
I love that you have that approach into architecture. Why, as a kid, you wanted to be an architect?
That's a good question. I don't really know. Specifically, it's funny. Like I always say, I only wanted to be two things. I wanted to be a cowboy at one point and then an architect. And kind of that was the path. I can't tell you why, but I do love it. You know, there's just so much to tinker with. Like there's everything. There's so many possibilities, outcomes. It's also very technical at times. So I love all those parts of it.
Why did you decide to bring biophilic design architecture into Las Vegas?
It just seemed like there's so much value in it. I mean, I grew up in this market. You know, for those who know me a little bit, you know, I came through Blue Heron. I started there when I was, you know, just going into college and was there for over 10 years. And through that time, I really watched how that company, we shifted the market towards a modern design. And we were doing very indoor-outdoor work before we really understood what biophilic design was. And then when I decided to leave and create Skyterra, it really was about creating things that were more bespoke, more truly one-of-one, custom. And biophilic design, well, it's what we focus on. It's really an approach. You know, it doesn't fully define our architecture. But what it does do is just provides value to how you feel in the home, mentally, physically. So those are something we're always thinking about. You know, how do we shape a home with these principles, because they add value to us, not as, you know, design value, just kind of how it looks per se, but as humans, it makes our lives better. So it just felt like, you know, this is the right approach.
Yeah, that is so cool. I didn't know that you were in Blue Heron previously. Why do you come up with the name of Skyterra?
That's a great question. It's very meaningful to me. So I mean, it's two words, and actually a lot of times people spell them separately or capital T. To us, it's one word, but it's based on two principles. So sky and earth, right? Terra. And it just came from, you know, self-exploration of just loving design, the philosophical side of architecture, the theoretical side. It's a very deep field in that way. How you can think about architecture is the human experience. And then there's just this really lovely technical side of, you know, the science of building, the craft, you know, and also the process of navigating building structures. And we very much have a lot of respect and discipline for that side of the process. So to us, it was about creating a company that really loves to do both. So that's the meaning behind Skyterra.
while I was prepping for the interview, I noticed that you focus in bringing a full service to the client, like architecture, landscape, interior design. Why do you came up with the idea of have everything in-house done for the client?
Great question. So we are full service. And what that means is we provide architecture, interior design, landscape. We also bring in all the engineers you need to make the project happen. And while we don't build the home, we help the client navigate the GC process and the construction process. And for us, that's just what makes sense. You know, we want to lead the vision and the responsibility of bringing it all together. We also understand that we think it adds efficiency and ease for the clients. You don't have to explain yourself to an interior designer, a landscape architect, another architect, and the GC, and kind of make all those things come together. You know, we lead that vision. And we do have consultants. So we work with an amazing landscape architecture firm called The Green Room. We actually brought them to Vegas from Phoenix, and now, excitingly, they're opening in Vegas. So we still have partners in that way, like on the landscape side, who bring such an artistic and just incredible approach. But we're still that point of contact for the client. We make sure, even through our consultants, their vision is held true. So we just want it to be easy and fun. We also want it to all feel really cohesive at the end. We think there's so much power in that. And we realize that the process is just full of so many steps, decisions, people, players. You know, it's expensive. So we want to be the person who is really their guide through that process, so they feel supported.
And do you focus in small projects or is only focused in big projects?
It's a good question. So we are, for those who don't know, we do custom residential only, and the scale varies. We're not tied to the scale. Of course, most custom homes are a certain size. I would say they're 4,000 square feet to over 10,000 square feet. But we occasionally do small projects. If there's like a strong design brief, like someone's like, I want to do this little structure, a cabin or something. If it's really interesting and they want to explore something cool, like we're always get excited about it. I think our most exciting project is like a 1,600 square foot rock climbing refuge in Blue Diamond, Nevada. You know, it's everything about it is nothing like we've done before. So that's what excites us. So yeah, we're not tied to the project being a certain size.
Absolutely. Can you talk about that project?
Yeah, so this project, it's actually one of the first projects that we contracted when I started the company. And it's for an incredible client. He loves to rock climb. It's not Alex Honnold, everyone always asks. But he was one of those few clients who's just completely bought into the philosophical of why he's doing this house, what it means to him, what he wants the home to say about how you live in the Mojave Desert. You know, he never cared about square footage at all. It was just about how he's going to live truly in connection with nature and go rock climbing all the time. So it's just a little 1,600 square foot, three-story house. It has a guest quarters below for his guests to stay. And above it has the living space and then like a loft bedroom. And the home was designed to look over the park, so it's very tall, so it can capture views of Red Rock. But what's interesting about it, you know, there's no drywall, there's no paint. It's all exposed wood, steel, and concrete. But we're doing something called the Living Building Challenge, which really plays into the Biophilic. It's one of the most stringent, certifications there are for sustainability, but it also goes into the ethical. It also goes into beauty, nature, and we're working with the Green Room to do the landscape. So one thing that just drives the point home is like the landscape design. We have an ecologist on the project from the Desert Research Institute because the landscape itself has to restore the balance of nature. So it's at that level of depth in every decision. How do we reduce waste? How do we make sure this home is net positive, essentially? So super exciting for us, you know. But it's just this little project. So lots of fun.
No, I love all of the projects that you have. Like if you, like for our listeners, if you go to Skyterra.com, you can see all of their projects. But I love because you are truly redefining the skyline of Las Vegas. And that is something that I love because you bring like the modern, but also it feels like you're bringing the outdoor indoor. How do you think has that impacted the luxury market here in Las Vegas?
So our first built project recently sold, Horizon House, and it performed really well on the market. It was exciting to see for us to see how people responded to it. To me, it was a very simple home, very minimal and clean, and for me, knowing the client we designed it for, like I knew how much that house was him. Which other people might just be like, oh, it's a very clean modern home. But I know like every decision, how exactly like it's about the client and how he lives and how he sees the world. But people responded to it very positively. They got so many compliments on it. And I think there's the market's changing a little bit, right? There's a lot of people coming to Vegas right now and they want custom homes. And I hear over and over again from new clients, prospective clients, agents like yourself, my client doesn't want what's out there. We've looked around. They don't want that. They're looking for something more distinguished, more intentional. And I think that's our approach, is highly intentional. We're not kind of stuck to a style. If you look at our work, there's a lot of diversity in the approach. It's really about understanding the individual client or the individual lot and how we create something for them to live there. And I think you can just sense that when you go into a project, a building, anywhere that's just really thoughtful, I think you feel that. And I think people feel that, and that's always rewarding to us.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the process of when a client needs to purchase a lot.
Yeah.
At what point at what point you guys need to be involved? I always, when I talk with my clients about building a custom homes, I tell them that before we make any decision, it's great to involve an architect. How is your process in regards of when the client is in that middle part of what lot to choose?
Yeah.
How can they reach out to you?
Yeah, it's a great question, because most of the time I would say clients come to us and they already have purchased a lot. And I can tell you like two stories from both ends. So we encourage people find an architect who will talk to you about what you want to do on your lot. Some lots are obviously knockout, perfect strip view. You don't need to ask that many questions. It's going to be great. But some lots, there's hidden challenges, or maybe the thing you really want isn't going to fit very well on that lot. Or maybe there's a lot of other development work you're not accounting for that could really impact your cost. So we can come out, and usually just by looking around and listening to what you want to do, we can tell you a lot about if that's going to work or what challenges might exist, particularly in the way of view. Sometimes the view is great today, but when that house is built down below, or that other future development, or the fence that's not there yet, we can help you see those things through 3D tools. So two examples. One on the back end side where I wish this client maybe, knew this beforehand. They bought this lot. It's very unique. It has like a huge hill in the front. So the first thing you got to deal with is your front yard is 20 feet high, and you got to get the driveway all the way up. And you have this big lot that's, almost an acre. It has a strip view, but the strip view's on this crazy angle. I got to now get a whole motor court and 4-car, 5-car garage up there. Like that takes up a substantial amount of the lot to be able to come up and maneuver. Now we're also angling the house. So you just start to erode the amount of space. And we got to do all this retaining. It's going to be expensive. We obviously came up with an amazing design that fits everything they need, but maybe they didn't understand those things at first and what impact it might have on how their home's going to look and feel. And would they have chosen differently? I'm not sure. But they would have the opportunity to assess that.
Yeah.
On the flip side, we had a client who engaged us, and we did a more extensive than just complimentary kind of come out and talk to him. They're about to buy an $11 million lot in Summit. Very big investment. And they wanted to know definitively, what are my views? And they also heard there's future development out in the distance. What's that going to look like?
Yeah.
So we put together a full 3D view study, analyzing every view from multiple levels. We 3D modeled all of the future development, a whole community that will be built out in the distance, so they can see exactly what their view impact might be before they make that investment. So they were wise to ask that question, and their agent actually connected us so we could provide that service.
Prior them purchasing the $11 million
Yeah,
lot.
and they've actually moved forward on it, and they decide, okay, we like this lot, we understand the views, we know what we're getting, and they are now going to close on this lot.
That is amazing. Does that, like when a client is interested, like in get your opinion, because I love your design because it's very unique. It's not something like anybody see in Vegas. And does that has any cost for the client to, like if the client call you and say, hey, I am interested in purchasing the lot, I need you to come in and tell me if what I have in mind would be possible. Can you give me an assessment of that?
Yeah, so for well-qualified clients who are, they're looking at a real lot, and a lot of times we connect with them through some of the community sales agents. We'll usually do a complimentary, right? Just get to meet them, help them understand some questions about the process, and we'll give them our opinion just looking at the lot. If they need more extensive, like let's see what really fits here, we kind of doodle out a house that is kind of to their requirements, or in this case, like a full view study analysis report, that usually has like a consulting cost. So we would just either do an hourly or give you guys a proposal if someone really wanted to deep dive, which, it's really not a huge cost when you compare it to the multi-million-dollar lot purchase. If you need to just be certain, we can help you guys see what's possible or what the issues might be, make sure it really meets what you want before you make that investment.
You are well known for make each of your projects very unique and one of the kind. What is the process behind having the conversation with the client to make the home specifically tailored to them and not having anything like that in the market? Like, for example, your project, The Summit in McDonald Highlands, is very, very unique. And I haven't seen any homes like that in Vegas.
I think a lot of it has to do with maybe our mindset too. The client is the design brief, who they are, how they live. That's how we judge every decision. We want to really understand them. We have them give us like all of their inspiration imagery, and we're never looking at it as, oh, this is like, just make it look like this. It's always about understanding the underlying, like she likes texture, she likes this color, she likes this feeling, how the light moves. This style, but what is it about this style? So like the Summit House, which is in McDonald Highlands, at the very top, and this amazing lot, that client came to us, and it's a perfect example of this. She said, I really love Santa Barbara architecture. And I said, okay, that's what you love, but that's not what you want, right? And she's like, no, I don't want that, but I want something that evokes that. So, that was a design brief. We didn't know. And I'll be perfectly honest that we actually designed a house, the first version, and presented it. And it didn't land. Her husband was like, I love it. It was a little bit more like abstract. We abstracted the Santa Barbara essence more in a more contemporary fashion. And it didn't land. And she said, this isn't what I had in mind. So we went back to the drawing board, and we found a different approach. And it was to kind of like take the essence of these more traditional forms, but use materials that would blend with the landscape, and to just do more subtle gestures of, a contemporary approach, I guess you would call it. It's something very different than what's really out there. McDonald Highlands told us we couldn't do arches either, but we figured it out with them.
You figured out a way around it.
Yeah, they told us they just won't do a true arch, just so. But no, we love that house. It's something very special, and we love that as designers. We love starting a process and not knowing where we're going to end up. Like, we like the clients who have a little comfort, who can feel a little comfortable in the uneasiness of not having certainty, right? Some people just, I want that, right? I want what you did the last time, but on my lot with my requirements. Mm-hmm. We like the clients who are open to go through an exploration and create something that they feel truly is theirs. I think if you're going to do a custom home, that's what it's about, right?
Yeah.
Should be custom. So we love that process and coming up with something new.
That is so awesome. You keep mentioning about the feeling, like what is the client going to feel when they are in that home? Why is that so important?
it's just or we're just more complex beings than just like what it looks like. It's very easy to get caught up, and even as designers, we do this too, right? What does it look like? Form, proportion, material. But there's just a whole world beyond that to engage with, like all of the senses, texture, touch, the feeling of space and light and how it shifts and changes. Like all of these are part of the toolbox and how we design. And at the end of the day, we understand and fully believe that like space, design is not neutral. It has an impact, good, bad, neutral. And we want it to be good. So we take it seriously. And we try to think very dynamically about the space and how it's going to feel and how it works in sequence, when you're moving from the front door and the first thing you see and how that feels and just how the whole story unfolds. And we think if we do that really well, like a home is going to feel amazing to a client. They can have different experiences and how they live and what their guests might experience in different seasons. We want it to be rich and we want it to feel very special to live there, not just have a box that happens to be the size that they wanted and in the place that they wanted. There's just endless possibilities. And, if we do our job well, it should feel great.
What makes like a client that decide to work with a Skyterra, what makes it different than working with another architect in the city?
Well, I don't know them all, so I couldn't tell you definitively. But I think I think you can get this from just going on our website and reading what we've written. Like we're very client focused, but we're still what I would like to believe is a high design firm. We are focused on very high craft architecture, but we really want it to be about the client. Our tagline is live like no one else. And we want you to feel like you are truly living one of one, your life, just expanded through the possibilities of architecture, where you're going to live and sleep and wake up and gather with your family. I think that makes us different automatically. Some architects are very much in their style, their way. Maybe it's a little more transactional. I don't know. Haven't worked with them, but you can tell it's a little bit more of like they do it one way and they kind of push them out that way. And others, there's some other great architects in town. Like, don't get me wrong. Some I admire very much, and they do great work. But you can just sense it, right? Everyone has a little bit of a different approach, and there's also a lot of personality. I think meeting people, you're going to be working closely with their team. Do you mesh well? We get feedback all the time from clients, as well as other people, that we're easy to work with, and we listen really well. Some other architects can be known, it's like stereotypical, like, oh, there's some arrogance, right? I want it my way. Yeah. Some might be like that, right? But we try to be, like I said, about the client. We don't feel like we're needed to be our way. We want to hear how you want it. We always tell our clients, like, stop trying to figure it out. Tell us what you want. We're going to figure it out, and we'll make it great. Like, that's the approach we take. So I think maybe that's why we're different, beyond what the design outcome looks like in the process. But we also are full service, and we just want to make sure it's easy and everything's taken care of, because there's just a lot that can go wrong, and really just be a big headache. So we want to just make that easy.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the custom design process, because a lot of our clients always have that question. In regards of, for a client that has never before worked with an architect, how do you help them?
We're going to be their guide. So we're going to just really give them an understanding of the process every step of the way, and how to navigate that and try to make it as seamless as it can be. But I guess advice for these people is just understand that it is a long process. It takes a long time to go through that process. With design, it can be a year, it can be longer. For a small project, it can be less, but it's a very personal process. It takes a lot to make all those decisions about how the house is going to be designed, built, crafted, every finish, every fixture. There's people who do it differently, where they give you a more generic set of plans, and all of those decision points have to be answered by someone, either you or your contractor. But we try to really make it all one complete, holistic, coordinated design. So it's a longer process. And it's expensive. And I think what a lot of people don't always realize is, like, no one really knows exactly what it's going to cost. You might have aspirations of what you want it to cost. course, like our fees are fixed. They understand that part, but construction, right? A lot of time passes, the market changes,
The materials.
the materials, what you choose, how the home ultimately ends up. There's so many things. So it's just, I think, by having a strong sense of what you really want, the thresholds you have in mind for time or money can help you find the right team and process that fits those requirements.
Yeah.
So like that's a good, for us, like I just say, right, if you're like kind of interviewing a client, like, is this a good client for us? Beyond what they want for design is them having some sense of the process. Because you hear from more people all the time, I'm going to build a custom home, or I want to build a spec home. And you can tell they don't really understand the complexity of it. And then usually it fizzles out because find out it's a lot. You got to be really prepared to go through that process.
What do you think clients should consider before building a custom home?
Considerations are like, yeah, do I need a custom home? Of course. And everyone wants their dream home. So
Yeah.
I think that part's easy, right? Or you want to live in a specific place or a lot. But it's having the resources and time to commit to that process, a very long build and the energy. But really it's to consider, what do you really want in a home? What do you want this home to feel like? How long might you live there? Is this a forever home? Is this a 5-year home? What are your goals? Because we can design with those things in mind, how it comes out. A hyper personal house can maybe not be the best for resale. A home that has a little more consideration for what someone else might want in the general market might be a good idea if you're not thinking this is a forever home. So having an understanding of that, but just coming in with a strong sense of what you need in the home, size, idea. That's usually where things can get a little messy, is like people really don't know what they want yet. That can just spin your wheels a little bit more.
Yeah. How do you deal with the clients that bring an idea to you? And this also falls through of like how to avoid wasting money. Because a lot of the clients, when they think about custom homes, they think about the dream home, having the home that has everything that they want, but they don't take in consideration the time that it's going to take to build it and also the changes. So how can a client avoid wasting money when building a custom home?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and I almost look at it as two things. There's like wasting money, like hard money, and then there's wasting like value or time as well. Wasting money, right? You can come in if you just have no idea what you want, and which can be fine, by the way. Like if you just want to explore ideas, there's a process for that. Or we just do like a time and materials contract, and let's explore, let's just design, let's figure out what works, what you like. We love that too. But a lot of times people are trying to, get from A to B, but they don't really know what they want. So they just end up with a lot of revisions or, worse, if you're speeding through the process and now you're in structural design and you got to go back, right? It just changes. They have a cost, right? Like we sell time and expertise. So going back and forth, getting all the engineers involved to change things, that wastes time and money paying for that work. And the later you realize you want to change something in the process, the more expensive it can be. But really, I think where people waste the most money, in my opinion, is kind of the invisible. It's in the value you lose by kind of shortcutting the process, not giving it its full respect of what's possible. Right? I think if the design outcome is special, doesn't mean it has to be opulent or extraordinarily expensive, but it adds value, right, compared to everything else on the market. So even if you're gonna sell it or you're not, adding that value, not to just the market, what you could sell it for, but also your life, to just shortcut the process because you could save, $50K on an architect and they'll do it a few months faster. I think if that really fits what you want, do it. Don't spend your money on better design if you don't see value in it. But I think a lot of people would, but they're not thinking about it right at that point. And it works too. Our house that was just sold, we weren't the developers, it was for a private client, but it sold in like 49 days.
That's
and I was told
awesome.
it usually takes about a year to sell a house over 10 million.
Yeah.
So it was lightning fast, and it was, in the like top 5 highest prices in McDonald Highlands. And we're not money focused on like what we're designing, but I think it shows like things that are designed well and they become desirable, and that adds value, and also value to your life if you're living there and it's special and it feels wonderful.
Yeah.
So I think that's where people lose the most money. But there's just the practical matters of choosing the wrong team. You know, we're about to talk to a client who they have an architect, and now they had designed this really special home, but it's not working out anymore. Like they're not happy with the architect, and they got to find a new pathway. So feeling confident in the team, that's going to carry you through and really have your best interests, help you answer all the questions. That's what you're looking for, to just navigate the process. And a great design. I think if you settle for less, that's where you can waste money ultimately, right? Because nothing is changing the cost of building.
You touched the point of a speed. And when I was doing my research, I saw that you guys, like, you don't take shortcuts. The custom home process might take a little longer than with other architects, but because you ensure that everything is going to be like the client want. So do you think when a client speaks with an architect and the architect tell them, hey, I can get you this design faster than anybody else, do you think that could be a red flag?
It can be. It's only a red flag if it doesn't align with what's important to you. If you're very time focused and you don't really care about the design being unique or bespoke, and then by all means, maybe that fits your requirements and what you need, do it. If you're looking for like your special custom home, you want something really nice, I think it is a red flag, right? If you're saying like you want something special, but you're looking at their portfolio and everything looks the same, and then at the same time they're like, well, we have this floor plan you can just modify and make it fit on your lot, that is a red flag, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason why maybe that process is faster, cheaper. The real reality is like if it's faster, they're doing less. They're not necessarily like that much more efficient. It's just they're focusing on less. They're answering less questions. It's not truly unique. They're using the same materials, wall assemblies, details, et cetera, over and over and over. That's how you make it go faster. It's a little bit longer when you want something truly unique because it's a prototype. It's custom home. It's never been done. We love exploring new materials, new details, how we bring those materials together, the client's specific aspirations, taking the time to go through every single space and actually design every detail of it. That just takes more time. So it's not going to be faster, but it's a different process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In regards of building a custom homes with the Skyterra, does the client get a full service including interior design? Meaning when you're building a custom home, you focus in not only looking nice in the architecture, but also making sure the furniture within the house, it flows and it makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So we don't currently do FF&E, like furniture procurement and design. However, when we are designing our floor plans, we're always laying out furniture and understanding how a space flows. And the interior design that we provide at this time is, all the hard surface. So it's, what are the finishes, the fixtures, the lighting. We do full lighting design, cabinetry, millwork, so how every piece of it fits together, except for the furniture. But it is something we aspire to do in the near future, so we can provide that continuous kind of value and holistic vision for the client.
That's nice. So you provide the client, the architect, to make sure the landscape outside of the home flows with the home, as well as making sure all of the interior are perfect how the client wanted in regards of material. Is that correct?
Exactly, that's correct.
I also wanted to talk to you about Skyterra. I was talking to you early, and I was surprised that you are very young, because this company that you are building is beautiful, and like in my perspective, it looked like you guys been like on market for a long time, and you only are 5 years. How does Skyterra, like how did you come up with the idea of Skyterra?
This is what I've always done, so it's kind of a natural extension, right, to do it for myself. And but the ethos behind it and how we're approaching it just felt like what was missing in the market also, and aligned with how we believe it should be. We just felt like Vegas had this opportunity to just elevate design in the custom residential space, as well as remodels, right? The city's aging, so we have that approach too. We wanted to see better architecture that really reflected people, more unique projects. We wanted it to be about those people, not about us. We get to, our reward is doing it, like coming up with the exciting stuff. That's what we love. So we wanted to make that who we are, and just do really great design work. I think it was as simple as that. And now we're doing it, and it's a lot of fun.
So you guys also focus in remodels?
Yeah, it's not something I would say is a focus, but it's something that I think we'll see more of in Vegas. And this was a decision that we made, that we wanted to do this because the city's maturing a little bit. People are also rediscovering these great older neighborhoods, like in Green Valley and such, like Quail Ridge Estates. And like they have so much character. I grew up here, and then I've never even seen these neighborhoods. You see them, they have these huge trees and huge lots, and you just don't see it like that anymore. But they have homes that are very much in need of updating, modernizing. So we wanted to be able to do that. So we don't do just small remodels. We do like full transformative remodels. Someone who's found an incredible lot where they already live in a neighborhood they truly love, and they want to essentially make their home a full new piece of architecture. We can do that. We have a great example on our website. It's called Retract House, and it was a 1980s just standard tract home that this client loved where they lived, didn't want to leave, and somewhere in the lakes. And we completely transformed it into a piece of architecture. It's nothing at all like a tract home. And that's a lot of fun. Like, it's way harder, by the way. It's way harder than starting from scratch. A lot of people think, oh yeah, it should be easier. We're starting from this, but like there's way more constraints. But we like the challenge. We like to solve the problem. So that's something we do, and we think we'll see more of as the city matures and people are finding spaces in these great neighborhoods.
Absolutely. What is your favorite part of architecture? Because I, in my personal opinion, I love architecture because I see it as an art. Sometimes you see the shape, the curve, is also how you feel. But that is me, like from the outside. I know an architect. What's your favorite part about architecture? What do you enjoy the most?
It's probably the process, right? So like it's kind of in the name, right? Skyterra. We talk about like philosophy and theory, and then like the technical aspects, and just really loving and respecting the craft of both. It's a lot of fun to design and imagine something that doesn't exist yet, and then to like figure it all out. Like how will this be built? And there's so much expression in that part of it, not just the rendering. It's like how we're going to join two materials, like to tell that story down to, we always say we pick the screws. Like we really do actually pick the screws, like because we care what the screw head looks like. I swear, we literally go pick the screws. It's kind of chaotic, but that's a lot of fun, and then to see it happen, right? Like you're just creating something from nothing. And there's so many expressions, right? Look at all these custom homes, so many expressions of what a home could be and how you can live. And I think just re-exploring that same idea in different lenses through other people's way of seeing the world, always makes it fresh. So
what is the most unusual request a client has made that you actually were like doubting the request, but it turned out to be like a brilliant idea?
It's a good question. Let me try to think. Unusual request. I mean, I've had a client, this was in my past life, who wanted to put like, I don't know that it turned out, but they wanted like aliens in tanks.
No way, for real?
It was like the whole basin was just like this fun world for them, this otherworldly place. It was like they wanted aliens in like water tanks, like look like they're floating. That was pretty unusual. I think most people don't get too crazy about how they want to live. A lot of people are they're very drawn to like they want it to feel like home. So nothing too crazy stands out. I've designed homes. I've designed some specific homes in the past, like where it was all about the car. Had 3-story car elevators. It was going to be on a racetrack. So sometimes there's those things where people are very focused on
Tell me
one
about that
thing.
home.
Yeah, this was a home that was going to go on a racetrack that was going to be built in Pahrump, and they had a whole basement garage. You could pull right out, get on the racetrack. There's this 3-story car elevator that went up through the whole home, so you could see different prized cars that within the home, and like there was just cars everywhere. Windows into all the garages. So there's things like that, and those can be fun challenges when people have like something very specific like they're about. It's fun to explore.
Sounds like such a cool home, one to design and to live.
Yeah, if you love cars, yeah,
Oh my
that's the way
gosh.
to do it.
We're seeing a massive shift in wellness living. Do you think biophilic design is becoming like a trend, or is becoming a new way of living?
It's one of those words that actually has real meaning and is under threat of becoming the buzzword, right? This happened to sustainability. I mean, it was on everyone's website, but were they practicing sustainable design, which is a process? It really is a decision-making process. Most people weren't. It's the buzzword, green design. We haven't heard that one in a while, but right, green. Everything was green for a while, whether it actually was or not. So I think you're going to see people try to throw that out, right, on a shallow basis. But biophilic design is, like an approach. It's a scientific, there's research, there's multiple principles of how you approach this. There's nature of the space, there's nature in the space, there's natural analogs. These are all the kind of big categories, which there's different approaches in there, right? One's obvious, right? Put a plant in the room. That's nature in the space. It has, like, it's been studied having certain features can lower your blood pressure, can enhance your cognitive performance. Sound of water, right? But there's it's more complex than that. There's also like creating ephemeral experience and being able to hear like random sounds of birds. Like that's actually a biophilic principle, and you can design to create these conditions. So there's a lot of depth to it, and I think there will be people like, yeah, well, I put natural stone on the wall, it's biophilic, right? No, it's not necessarily. Like, yes, that is a biophilic element, but maybe the whole approach, the whole project is not necessarily a biophilic home. And there's things that you couldn't recognize without knowing. It's how you shape the space, how you create a sense of safety in a space by, the form of the space and what you can see and where you're protected. So there's just a lot of depth. So yeah, I think some people will say they're doing biophilic design. They're maybe not, or they don't understand it fully. And then there's people who are going to be really about it and be immersed in that kind of emerging research and applying that in their design. And the more of it, the better. So, I hope everyone does do it for real.
Yeah, I think that is so beautiful, because I have learned so much about biophilic. Like, I have to be honest, like, before knowing you, I didn't know much about. And while I was doing my research, I started to learn. And with this conversation, I am like, that is actually very cool. And it's nice that there is a way of living, and there is more than just putting rocks on the wall, and having a plant in your home. There is actually a sign behind it. So
yeah, and we should talk about the wellness aspect, because you mentioned that, right? Like wellness living. And biophilic can certainly be a part of that, because it has these real impacts about how you feel, literally your blood pressure, your cognitive ability. These are some of the things they've studied in certain examples, and some of it's just preference too, like just what feels good by interviewing a lot of people. But like wellness as a whole, another approach, and it's also, I think, undervalued. And it's something we look at. So like the Living Building Challenge for that little rock climbing house we mentioned, it's all about also, like using materials that don't have certain chemicals. There's a whole red list. That's a specific list. There's just like banned substances in kind of truly clean design, if you will. Like if you think of it like a candy bar, right? You're like, oh, is this clean? Well, let me look at the ingredient list.
yeah,
It's really hard to do that with building materials. So, and they're full of things you normally don't like or wouldn't want in your house, and off gases. So people who are really focused on that's something we actually have a lot of knowledge in. So I'm Living Future Associate. So that's the organization who develop the Living Building Challenge. So I'm certified in that process and understand really looking at every material, the chemicals in them, and being able to go to that level, air quality. There's just a whole nother world to dive into for someone who's truly focused on that.
Yeah.
Rarely people are that kind of OCD
meticulous
about it, but like I think there's a market for it, and I think there's people who are, and they really do care. And yeah, we're well equipped, and we're interested in that too.
I just want to make sure I am understanding correctly, because I am fascinated by this topic. Like, I didn't know it goes to the point of the ingredients of what you're building, the structure, the materials you incorporate in the house, and also the feeling. Am I correct?
Yeah, it absolutely can. So, like, I mean, there's that ability to look that closely at the choices you make. So in the Living Building Challenge home that we're designing, everything we're looking at, we're even paying attention to where does it come from? You know, how close to Las Vegas can we get these materials? How few materials can we build the building out of? Not necessarily in quantity of materials, but like, you know, can we build a wall that's done in one step, right? There's not drywall and insulation and all these things that have waste, you know, because that's more about the sustainability aspect of how do we reduce carbon footprint, which is a really interesting way to look at a project, and it changes the constraints and way you make decisions versus purely just, do I love this material? You start to investigate the story of that material, and it could include the ingredients. You know, does this adhesive give off carcinogenic, you know, fumes? Like, a lot of them do. So it can go that deep for certain things, but sometimes it's more just about like really understanding the material, you know, the natural material, the texture, and how does it tie into the story. And sometimes that's more the biophilic approach. Those two things can go together, but just really creating a story of how that material, not just because you like it and it's beautiful, but how does it really tell the story of this house and the experience of this space? We're also very focused on that.
That is so cool. Like, I am amazed. That is so cool. I hope, well, I know that he loves so much that house, but I hope that house goes on the market, the challenge one, because it sounds like a cool project to be part of it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's something different.
What has been the biggest lesson that project have give you?
Oh, we learned a lot of lessons in that project, just because it's a different approach. I mean, even with the city, you know, we are collecting the rainwater, and we're not draining almost any water off the site. We're retaining it all and infiltrating it naturally. So we're managing our own stormwater versus just kind of sending it down the road. So all those things need special approval. The county's like, you're not allowed to do this, or we've never seen it like this. So have to navigate all of those pieces. And the Living Building Challenge is very intense, and there's a lot of requirements that go way above and beyond, you know, typical sustainability requirements. So just understanding the ins and outs of how they want to see it, and thinking about each piece so much more critically than just, do we like this, you know, or is this an easy way to do it? Allows you to see the design in a whole new way, and it gives you a whole new result too, you know, but nothing is done without intention. Like, you really scrutinize every decision. So that part has been a lot of fun.
That sounds amazing. Where is Skyterra going? Like, where do you see it? Where in your head, where do you want Skyterra to grow to?
Yeah, to grow. I mean, we want to keep doing what we're doing, and you know, if we do more of it, I think that's great. We're not focused on scale per se, right? As a business, we're focused on quality and being able to maintain that personal and creative touch, and provide quality design. So, you know, but we also are excited to go places too. You know, we don't say, you know, we just work in Las Vegas. We're doing a project in like Tucson in the foothills of the Catalinas, and we get excited about new places, new climates. It's fun to go there and dissect the place, you know, the specific lot, a new, you know, just ecological place. It's a lot of fun. So it inspires new design approaches for us. And so we're excited to have the opportunity to do work in new places.
Yeah. Where would you like to go and design a home?
I always thought it would be really fun to design a house somewhere like subtropical, almost like jungle-like,
That would be so
especially the
cool.
homes that are like, they're almost like completely open air, just to remove the constraints of like air conditioning and stuff in a certain way. That would be really fun.
That sounds like a very cool project.
Yeah, I look forward to it someday.
Yeah. As a founder, what is one of the biggest lessons that you have learned of building this company to the point that it is today?
A lot of lessons. First business, I guess I've built and am very much still building. So you quickly learn how many other aspects there are to manage and build. But love that challenge, and I think it's a lot of fun to like try to build a brand, right? To like really think about, there's so many things that like you can look out and see how someone else has done it, and that's always useful context, but you still always want to do it a different way. Like, so you get to really build it through how you see the world, just like we design a custom home in a way how we see, but also how the client sees the world. Is kind of unique to, try to build a business that just aligns truly with your values. And I think that part is fun, and it's also a lesson all the time. You're constantly learning about yourself and what works for you and makes sense and what you believe in. So I enjoy that process.
What do you like to do in your spare time? Are you a creative person?
Yeah, I can be. Yes, I'm a creative person, but running the business, there's a lot of practical matters. There's not a lot of spare time. So I have young children and my wife, so spare time is at home, doing the family thing and running around with the little kids. But I do love when I can to get into nature and go hiking, and I like coffee. Just sitting on a patio with some coffee and thinking, reading. Those things bring me joy.
How do you manage being a business owner and also spending time with your family?
We just try to maintain a schedule. And there's obviously a lot of demands, but we like to go home and cook dinner every night and eat with the family and do those things. So, try not to work on weekends, those kind of things, and just leave time available for that. Yeah,
which it can be very hard.
It can be, yeah. Sometimes it's hard to you get emails, right? Everyone can get a hold of you now with your phone, so it can be distracting. But it's important. Absolutely.
Do you have any favorite restaurants in Vegas?
Favorite restaurants? Probably a handful for different reasons. We eat a lot of Flower Child.
Really?
Which is great. It's always there. It's always pretty healthy. It's
very
close to my house. Yeah. So it's like our family go-to. There's also this lovely little like cafe restaurant called Little Avalon's right by where I live. So we go there all the time. They have a good menu. It's just more like casual, sit down, but it feels local. It's a nice space. And then a great restaurant. Not so much, maybe to comment on the food. Food's wonderful, but it's just such a unique experience. I love Delilah at Wynn.
Really?
So a lot of fun. Just they sequence that place.
Sometimes it's hard to get reservations there.
Very hard, yeah. It is hard, but it's really cool, the experience of the design, and they set up a really nice procession, how you enter the space and how it unfolds. So it's just unlike anything really elsewhere in Vegas that we've experienced.
Yeah. So you like focusing in experience?
Yeah, I like to go to new restaurants, but I'm not a foodie. It's more about like the environment and the experience. Yeah, I love to see how they put all that together.
I need to ask you this question because my husband and I will go back and forth about growing our family.
Yeah.
And what has been like the hardest thing of being a parent?
That's a good question. It just changes your priorities, right? I tell my friends who are like having kids or about to have kids, I was like, well, before then you can kind of just do whatever you want. Like you're like, I don't want to eat dinner tonight. I'm not that hungry. I won't. Mm-hmm. Now it's like, no, the kid's got to eat. You have to do certain things. So like your time, your priorities. There's that part of it, I think, practically. But there's so much love and joy. There's also hard moments because kids are challenging, right? They're not rational. They don't listen all the time. They don't do it the way that makes any sense at all. So, you learn so much about yourself. They say it's like parenting yourself, right? You see things come out of you as you're trying to navigate all these challenges.
Yeah.
So that's probably the challenging part, right? You go, oh, how do I get better at that? But I think there's so much growth in it too.
How do you want your kids to think of you?
We're getting deep now. Is just loving, caring, I think, right, to just know that someone really always had your best interest in mind, even when it was maybe a harder moment or frustrating, to know it was done truly from like a place of love and not the kind of love where it's like, I just want to solve all your problems and make it easy. It's like the kind of love where I want you to grow to be the best version of yourself and feel capable and believe in yourself. I think at the end of the day, if they know that, then I think that's what I would want.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Yeah,
it was a pleasure having this
really
conversation. I truly learned so much about you and about Biophilic design. So I'm so grateful that we got to have this conversation.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a lovely conversation.